Hey guys, welcome back. This is going to be sort of different. I don't usually do voiceovers, but because of this video, I'm using my air compressor to dry brush, or airbrush, and I can't do that. So I'm showing you here, I'm using the Vallejo Model Color Black and Layman Median to thin it down in my little bowl that I use for mixing and thinning things. I had a little problem with this model color. I just bought it this morning, and it's really thick. It's a lot thicker than normal. I'm not sure what that's going on with that stuff. I just bought it and didn't throw anything to mix it, so it works out pretty good. But later on, you'll see that my airbrush gets clogged, and really, it was weird when I cleaned up my airbrush. It was like a little tiny sliver, like almost a glass-like sliver of plastic had gotten in it, and I have no idea where that came from. Nothing in my mixing bowl that I can look at right now, so just, I don't know, weird. Maybe it was in the paint, maybe the kids had messed with something, I'm not sure. But it took me a good while to clean that out. But yeah, I thought I'd show you what I do when I airbrush. Basically, mix up a little paint. I usually mix a lot, about half of that cup, for the most part, because I'm usually painting a lot of surface or a lot of miniatures. But since I'm only painting these 6 here, I'm kind of trying not to waste any of the paint, and this does become an issue. I'm gonna get my glove. I have these vinyl gloves. I can't stand plastic, but vinyl gloves, I get them from Harbor Freight, pretty cheap. So usually what I do, and of course my hand is blocking out most of this, I've got to find a better camera angle, is I just hold the model at various angles and paint it. I've got him upside down now, that's why I really can't see. And this is really how you get at all the angles. You've got to hold the model at all the different angles so you don't miss anything. Get the spray in there. Now, see, the airbrush is working really good at this point. You may notice I don't have the back of it on. I usually don't, because I anticipate that at some point it's going to get cloggy up for some reason, and I'm going to have to deal with that situation. I even have the tip nozzle on, which I almost never have on because it's so much easier just to clean off the minor clogs without it on. But it does help with the spray, even though it gets the inside rim of it gets clogged up super fast with paint. So getting this guy, knock him out pretty good. Doesn't take that long, but you have to keep going over it, make sure that you've got every little nook and cranny, because it's really hard to kind of blend in the brush base coat over an airbrush base coat, because airbrush base coat is so thin and so smooth that it really hard. Now I'm trying to show you him, but of course the lighting and it's trying to focus on the background, but then I figure that out and he comes into focus. Yes, so he did come into focus. So he's done pretty good. You might be able to see that right there on those little pipes on the backpack, the jump pack, that there's a little bit of gray, and I notice that as I bring him back, and so I just go ahead and give him a little bit more spritzing down. And as I have a little issue with the airbrush right there, but it's just this minor clog, and I believe it's because also that I'm running low on the paint, because I didn't mix up a whole lot. I was hoping it would go a little farther, but sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends. Now see, I'm realizing my hand's in the way most of the time, and I'm trying to like show you guys and he's getting painted. But yeah, got to definitely improve on these things here if I'm going to do these kind of videos. What I really need is a really short tripod. They make them, they're like super bendy and you can adjust them real good. I just need to get one of these days when I have some money in the budget for it, which is going to be a while, but eventually. It's always a kind of a dilemma. Do I get models, or do I get paints, or do I get new painting supplies, or do I get new camera equipment? It's always a dilemma. So yeah, I'm knocking out this guy here. I think on the video that was good, or good-ish, because you know you guys still can't see this guy, so not the best. But on the video that was good-ish, I think I get 2 or 3 guys painted, and then the last guy. So we'll see how this goes. He's coming along pretty good. Most of these, like the underside of the bolter, if you can see, and the top of things around the head where the backpack is and stuff, is some areas you really need to pay attention between the shoulder pads and the armor, and the underside of the shoulder pads are really areas you've got to make sure that you get, but that you don't put too much paint on. Now, a lot of what you'll see me doing, and I'm going to watch my fingers right and see when I might do it again, but I'm painting. You see I'm pulling that back, and I'm trying to get a lot of paint out of there because the paint's really going through. But now you see it's not pulled back so much. Just a second ago, that was because I was actually using just the air from the airbrush to dry some of the paint in an area and make sure that its coverage was good. I do that quite a bit, and when I'm painting is just run air over, especially sometimes because I take because it's hard for me to get the airbrush paints without having to order them online, which I just am loath to do because so many times when I order stuff online it's a bad experience. But so I use the model color paints and the GW paints, and I thin those down, and a lot of times well, not a lot of times, but every once in a while I get that mix wrong and it's too thin. It gets kind of watery. It'll still coat the stuff, the miniatures, but it's what's the word, it goes on too thick a lot of times because of the way it's coming out of the airbrush. And so I've got to use the airbrush to kind of dry it and push it around on the model and kind of coat it that way. It's almost like watercoloring it. It's really an interesting process, but it does work. And you can see here I don't have it pulled all the way back. I'm actually just drying some areas and putting just a small bit of paint on areas where it's not quite covered. Sorry I'm having to stop a couple times, but throat is really dry today. Weather is, all my joints are starting to hurt. It must be gonna rain tomorrow because everything always starts to hurt right before it rains. It's just crazy. But yeah, I'm going over, trying. I wish I'd been able to really get it, but the way I do it, holding him there with that, and a lot of people, they use the cork, which I do have, but a lot of times I don't use it because I have the gloves, and I just throw a glove on, and for the most part, a lot of the paint on the overspray is not, it's a little bit from the overspray, but a good chunk is from when I'm grabbing and cleaning the nozzle tip a lot of times. And I said, oh well, yeah, I do get most of the guys on camera before I think it's on this guy where it starts to that whatever that was starts to cause an issue. However, it got in my airbrush from whatever what. It's nice. It's like a needle thin plastic. It's kind of crazy. Look at me. You can completely see everything. No, you can't. And I apologize, guys. I'll get better if I do another one of these type of videos. I usually like to just do stuff where we're working together and you can see each of my steps and I'm following along, and we can just sit and hobby together. You know, I like to sit and hobby with you. That's kind of what I like to do. Sort of like the way Bob Ross, is that his name? Yeah, the way he used to. You gotta paint with me, you know. You like to paint with me, kind of thing. But on this particular video, I just wanted to, you know, show you. Yeah, I do airbrush. There's my airbrush. You can see my little compressor there in the back. It's not the biggest or the awesomest, but it works for me. It does the job. It's let me look over here. I can see it's in a Wada Studio Series, and then my airbrush is a Neo by a Wada, or for a Wada. So I do have an Awada compressor, and it does work well for me, like I said, because I'm usually not, I'd say the longest I've ever airbrushed was an hour. of airbrushing, and that was a lot of miniatures and some vehicles and stuff. So usually under an hour, and the compressor has worked perfectly fine. I just follow directions, make sure it's, you know, the air pressure is complete. See, you can see how hard I'm just to get a drop out of that bottle, and it's usually not that way with that paint. So something going on with that paint for sure. Knock that model down, and now I'm trying to thin it out here some more. With there was a little bit of thinned paint left in there, but it's just not enough, so I need a little bit of layman's medium. Now some people use water, and water is fine for these type of paints. The reason I use layman's medium is because it doesn't change the properties of the paint when it thins it down. Water and other type thinners will change the properties of the paint, so that's something you have to balance out. But with my airbrush, I usually use the layman's medium because I can use the droppers, and I can control this many drops per that many drops, and kind of dial in that particular paint pot, because each paint pot seems to be different. And I'm going to have to work with this. I'm going to throw a ball bearing in it, get it really shook up, see if I can get it a little looser than it is. If not, I may actually add layman's medium directly to it, and then shake it up, and then get it to the consistency I need, which will be a paint brush consistency. I still will keep it as a brush consistency, because more often than not, well, with black's different. I usually more often than not airbrush with black because I base most of my miniatures in black, but more often than not I'll use it as a brush as well for a lot of stuff. So I try to keep my paints at brush consistency if I can. And so just knocking this final guy out, and this is the Kill Team and Sergeant Rock. Took me a few days to get the patent and everything. A lot of things were going on, but I'm into it, and I'm still going to try to get them painted by next Wednesday. Alright, so now I'm saying I'm done. If you want to leave a thumbs up, do so in the bottom. Comment, I answer those, and we will talk to you later.